Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Army and Navy podcast. My name is Leslie Schneider. I'm the Marketing and Communications Director here. And today I'm joined by Rob Laizure, class of 1969, and Barry Shreiar, the president of Army and Navy Academy. Rob is kind enough to be with us today after spending time delivering a chapel talk to the cadets over the past week. And this is his second visit to the Academy. So we really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for interrupting your family vacation.
Hey, listen, no, thank you, Leslie, and Barry, thank you for having me.
So when you were here previously, Rob, it's been about a year. And this was, I think, a bit of a reintroduction or a reconnection for you to the Academy, that you had spent some time rediscovering what the Academy had meant to you as a child and were articulating that to us. And you introduced the concept of the toolbox and how this toolbox that you created in your mind and to help you work through your life and pull out valuable lessons and I guess actions to help you be successful in life was developed here.
Yes.
And I'm wondering how you've added to that toolbox over the last year since talking with us previously.
Yes, well, thank you. So the last time we were here, reflecting on what we had discussed about the toolbox, I was thinking about really what was the number one core value that I took away from the Academy, and it really has to come back to discipline. Everything starts with making your bed, right? And we've heard, Admiral William Raven, his commencement speech in 2014, make your bed, get up and make it to perfection. And that's where everything started with the Academy. We had to get up and we had to make our bed in the morning, right? Before we'd go to eat breakfast and get formation. So everything started with discipline. So that was the first tool in my toolbox, the toolbox that Army Navy gave me. And the core values of this Academy, honor, integrity, respect, commitment, gratitude, and courage were all tools within that toolbox when I graduated from this Academy that I took with me for life, my business career, and for my faith.
Rob, we talk here a lot about the idea that that's how important structure is to a boy brain, which I think and you reference now as a discipline, right? Because we go from structure to habit to lifestyle, right? And if you have these core values that you just recited, that they create this sort of foundational aspect for you to go on and take on other challenges. Now, you left here and you went into the Navy.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you did there and how you're able to meet challenges while you're in the Navy.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, I served in the Navy. I left the Academy and I went in, enlisted in the Navy as a communication technician. Basically what we did, and I did have a top secret security clearance. And what we did is we handled classified communication for the U.S. government. And there was a ship in 1968, I believe. It was seized by the North Koreans. And it's the only ship to this day it's actually a museum in North Korea right now. You can go on the USS Pueblo. And it's what we did. It's what I did in the Navy. And they decommissioned all the ships after it was seized by the North Koreans. So it's kind of an interesting story. If you have a chance to look it up, the USS Pueblo, the story about that. But so with that being said, the discipline that I received from Army Navy, let's talk about that. So I had to go through A school to become this communications technician. And it was tough. Only about 50% of the applicants survived A school for communications technician, and it was challenging. But that discipline that I received at the Academy gave me the eye of the tiger to finish really my first challenge in life after leaving the Academy. Really was the Navy. It was like, okay, here we go. So I was able to pull those tools out of that toolbox, right? within the Navy, and it was a success for me, and it was an honor for me to serve in the Navy and to serve our country.
Now, when you finished with your naval commitment, you're originally from Arizona.
Yes.
Right? When you left the Navy, did you go back to Arizona?
I did. Went back to Arizona, and I started working in my family business, in the outdoor advertising business, in Phoenix, Arizona. And again, discipline. I remember as a young man, gosh, I was in my early 20s, and I was working in the steel plant. It was actually hot. Think of Phoenix, Arizona, 115 degrees plus in Phoenix, right? And I remember that I was the first one there. Okay, so seriously, I can remember I would open the gate, literally the first one there, and I would open the gate and I would make the coffee and I would prepare for the day. Where did that come from? Reveille. Oh, Army Navy Academy. Get up in the morning, make your bed. Do you see now? Is it kind of, you seeing how it progressed in my young life? So that was the start of my business career, right? And so, here we go. The legs off of Major Bruce and the discipline in Army Navy now taking hold in my career, my young career.
Now extend that. You told a story to the cadets this week about how you would again, you've been in communications for a very, very long time because you continued that career even later in life. And you told them a story about how you'd have everybody come to work at 6 o'clock in the morning so that they could start their day in that same manner. Go ahead and talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, that's a great question, Barry, because so think about it. In my early 20s, opening the gate, right, for the steel plant, it was actually a steel fabrication plant. Opening that gate, the first one there, and then later on in my 60s. Literally, this is so all the businesses. So that's this full contour business was developed when I was in my 60s, and we were the first ones there at 6 a.m. and we would require all the employees to show up at 6 a.m. because we wanted to have a culture of discipline within the company. We wanted to see who was really committed to the company, and hence the 6 a.m. But where did that come from? That came from, well, the toolbox is a little rusty now, and now I have to put some, WD-40 on it, but it's still the same toolbox, and it has the same tools in there. So I was able to pull that discipline tool out again in my 60s for Full Contour, the design business that we developed later on in my career.
This is fascinating. I have to dig deeper into that. So you're hiring, you had a number of people. It wasn't like it was 4 people there. You had a lot of people. Now they didn't have your background, right? So it's really sort of 2 questions. One, how did they respond to that challenge, that level of commitment? And when you interviewed people, were you specifically honing in on that discipline, that person that you thought could meet your standard?
That's another great question. In our interviews in business through my career, I would ask questions driving the answer, hoping that the answer would drive to the culture that we had developed. Of really the culture of having honor, integrity, respect for one another, the commitment to the company, gratitude, and courage. So the questions that we would ask in our interviews would hopefully, questions like, are you willing to get up early in the morning and be here at the office at 6 a.m. with the rest of the team? That would be a question.
Yeah.
And they would have to answer that question. And then another question is, look, we support and work with each other and care for each other. But if I would ask you to get up and when you come into the office, if you would clean the restroom, would you be willing to seriously clean the restroom? And that was one of my questions. Yeah. Well, where did that come from? I had responsibilities on Army Navy Academy. Sometimes we didn't like what we were asked to do up the chain of command, correct? But we were disciplined to perform those activities. So hence, when we'd ask those questions, and also to another important part of this whole culture that we developed is that I was there at every morning meeting at 6 a.m. and I was one of the first ones there. And the reason I say one of the first ones, my sons who passed this toolbox on to, sometimes they beat me to the office. That's fair to say. So anyway, I hope I answered your question.
You did. So, well, just a small, very quick follow-up. Did you have a challenge finding people that could meet the standard? Because they didn't come from the Army Navy Academy. They didn't have that background.
No, and frankly, we would just get resumes. And what we would hope for is like anybody with a business, or they would get their stack of resumes, right? And you have a culture here at our Navy Academy, and right, Leslie? And so you want people to fit within your culture. So you go through those resumes and you hope to have a final, it's like casting a movie, right? I guess that would be a way of saying it. Casting a movie where we're hoping to get the best of the best to perform in this movie. The same thing with business, right? We hope that we can get the best of the best to fit our culture, just as you have here today, right? So
if maybe the discipline is the hammer, then another concept that you really hit on in your talk this week was the eye of the tiger. So I'm not sure what tool that would be. Maybe the stud finder, the sure identifier of something solid behind the surface. So can you talk a little bit about the eye of the tiger and how that developed and how that played out in your life?
Well, so the eye of the tiger, a tiger fixes its eye on its prey, right? And it's focused on that prey. It doesn't move. And so what's interesting is I was thinking about that question, not that you would ask, but I was just for my own good, like, where did this come from? But I mean, think about it. So you're getting ready for a parade, right? I remember the days we'd line up and we'd get ready for the parade. So it's all the bits and pieces of discipline. It's not just making your bed. It's looking sharp. It's presenting yourself well, right? It's for the fight. The horse is prepared for the day of battle, but deliverance is of the Lord. That's a favorite Proverbs that we used in our business. I taught that Proverbs to all the boys and to all to everyone within our culture, that the horse is prepared for the day of battle. Can you imagine? So we as men, right, we want to prepare our horses for the day of battle, but deliverance is of the Lord. So as we prepared for a parade, so I was thinking, but that's where it came from. So if I could put icing on the cake, so to speak, it would be getting ready for a parade was my first, like, yes, we're going to go get him. I'm dressed. We're going to perform. We're disciplined. Does that? I don't know if that makes any sense or not. But so that looking back, that's
it is. It is the accountability of all of the preparation work that
yes, and shining the belt buckle.
And you had a pretty special quality about you. Your experience here, you came here as a junior.
Yes.
You said, look, it was lackluster junior year. You just, got along, didn't put anything in your toolbox.
Well, wait a minute. Major Bruce was part of his junior year.
Yes, but Barry's right. I left with an empty. Well, okay, so that's kind of a double edge.
Yes, make an impact.
Yeah, but I still left with an empty toolbox.
And what you did, this is fascinating. You leave, you go back to Arizona for your senior year, and you have this incredible internal ability to say, not just to yourself, but said to your parents, I want to go back to this academy and repeat my senior year. That is extraordinary that you at that age could say, I know that I can get something and I have to go get it. And you did. You came back, flourished. You did much better in your classes. Spent very little time with Major Bruce marching.
Zero
time. And even at a young age, you were so introspective that you could say, I know that I can get more, and I now am going to go seek it out. I mean, seeking is a big part of your spiritual life, right? And it's been there. It's always been there for you. And it makes you just so incredibly special because you see these things and you're able to act on them. And so few people will. So the fact that you were able to say, I see a path. I want more. I think is extraordinary. Now that led you into, I mean, I think this was clearly all these spiritual issues were deeply inside of you, but clearly you were thinking about these things, and it's always been with you. And I think you talk now about your second toolbox, your spiritual toolbox, but you've always been able to exemplify that, which is pretty extraordinary. And I know you tell, you're a chaplain, you talk a lot about it, and you're very clear about it. I think it's great for you to expand on how that sort of that spiritual aspect in you has been able to guide you.
Well, thank you for that. I had the original toolbox with Army Navy Academy with all the tools that this academy had given me. And yet there's a spiritual side and a spiritual toolbox. And so let's talk about the discipline. The discipline of getting up in the morning and, making your bed. So I have in my spiritual toolbox. Incidentally, this is my favorite book in my life, and it's my Bible, and it is very much a part of my spiritual toolbox. And so, getting up in the morning, reading my Bible, and Charlie Kirk has said 3 things that you need to do as a Christian. Number 1, get up and read your Bible every day. Number 2, do what your Bible says. And number 3, tell people what your Bible says. And so that is really my DNA on my spiritual toolbox, is this book. I believe in this book. With this book has changed my life. It has. We talked about that in the original podcast. It said the Army Navy Academy gave me the cake, but my spiritual toolbox filled with Jesus Christ and how he changed my life forever is the spiritual, and it actually is the frosting on the cake, right? Of my spiritual side of my life. And everything from me now is driven from that spiritual toolbox to what I do in life.
It's fascinating. It's brilliant.
I would like to bring up one of the other things I discussed is Proverbs 22:1, a good name earned by honorable behavior, godly wisdom, moral courage, and personal integrity is more desirable than great riches. And you see, that's what I believe that the school had given me. It talks about honorable behavior. That's in the ANA toolbox, right? It talks about moral courage. It talks about personal integrity. So you see how the Bible is able to kind of tie in with the Army Navy Academy toolbox as well. So this is the DNA that I have for my life, my career, and my faith. Right here is the Bible, and Jesus changed my life forever, and that's just so much a part of who I am and my DNA.
And you actually mentioned how that guiding principle from Proverbs has assisted you in your business life, how you didn't have to chase money, that you did the honorable thing time and time again, and it always came back. You told a great story to the boys about, you could reference it again, about the communications, one of the communications business you owned, this billboard business, and how, in the beginning it was pretty difficult and cash was tight, and you had a customer, I'll let you tell it, you had a customer who you delivered some things to that mysteriously never got there. And,
yes.
And you were forced to have to pay for it again.
Yes.
So I'll let you have you finish the story, because it's
the story was Ted Lee's story, and Ted Lee owned a casino in Mesquite, Nevada, and he wanted us to put up 2 billboards for his casino, in which we did. We got the job. We put up the 2 billboards, and there are 2 sign faces on each billboard that we shipped to his painting company, the company that would paint the billboards, put them on his property, on his structures, and he never received them. And, I remember Lisa and I just looking at each other going, well, we shipped the faces. And in the shipping industry, there's what you call a bill of lading. It's a receipt. And we had a copy. Back in the day, I had to fax it to that shoes. I had to fax it to Ted. And Ted, you've got that. You see right here that they signed for the faces. He said, well, I never received them. And I said, well, Ted, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want the faces, Rob. And so I said, okay. I said, well, we'll ship you the faces. But I said, Ted, I want you to make me a promise. Please promise that you'll never forget this, what we're doing. You know you got those faces, or somebody did, and we're shipping them to you, so we're doing a double, but please don't forget. So 5 years go by, and he had a small casino in Sahara called the Eureka. And now we're on the other side of the business. We were actually owning the billboards. And so there's a section of land on Sunset, which runs parallel to the airport, and the strip. That's a section of land 1 mile by 1 mile, and there's 15 billboards that we're going to go on that land. And my lease guy goes, hey, the landowner is Ted Lee. I went, who? And he went, Ted Lee. And I go, I want to be at that meeting. So can you imagine what was going through my mind? 5 years goes by, and he owes me, but I wouldn't, there's no way that I would approach Ted like that. But anyway, I was just thinking like, okay, Lord, please. But so we went to the meeting, and I walked in, and this is no joke. Hey, Rob. Now he's Asian, right? So his memory, like, hey, Rob, I never forgot about those sign faces that you sent me. And then he didn't say another word. He was just like, I was just like, okay. And so we sat down, and he says, yeah, I've got these 15 sign locations. So what do you guys think about it? And so I said, Ted, yeah, could I give you a proposal? He said, yeah. So we set up a meeting with his attorney, and we went into his office. It was just myself, his attorney, and Ted. And so I handed him our sign lease, and Ted looked at me and he said, Bob Adams, who was actually a competitor, said he offered me $500,000 for a signing bonus to put these billboards up on my property. So what can you do, Rob? And I just looked at Ted, and I said, Ted, I don't have that kind of money. We're a small company. And I remember pausing, and I just looked at Ted, and I said, Ted, I really need this deal, Ted. And that's all I said. And I stopped. And Ted just looked at me, and he looked at his attorney. And he said, how does this lease look? And his attorney was reading it as we were talking. And his attorney said, yeah, looks fine. Ted paused again, and he looked at me, and he just grabbed that lease, and he grabbed his pen, and he signed it. And he said, here you go, Rob. No signing bonus. Well, how did that happen? So that goes back to Proverbs, a good name, right?
Value.
And like you said, I wasn't chasing the money, right? So people, those values, where do those values come? It came from Scripture. It came from, for me, it came from Proverbs, but yet it goes back to Army-Navy Academy, the same values, right? In the toolbox. You see how it's all connected? So it starts with Army-Navy, finishes, that's why it's the cake and the icing. The icing for me is Jesus, right? It's this book. It's this scripture. That's the icing for me. And so Ted, he signed that, and he gave up that money. And so that's where I learned, like, wow, okay. You put the money behind you, and you work hard, and it will follow. One of the principles that we've taught our boys through the years. So it all comes back, right, to the Major Bruce story.
Yeah. Which is, it's extraordinary. And I think, I'd like your thoughts on this, but I think it's getting more and more difficult for young men to find places where they can get this level of structure and create these habits so they can have a lifestyle like yours, where integrity always shows up. There are blips in the road, there are setbacks, but if you stay the course, your personal honor and your personal integrity will lead the way, right?
Yes.
And you're deeply involved in various businesses, both nationally and internationally. You have a thriving business outside of the country. Do you see? I mean, you have younger children and grandchildren. Do you see the same? Are you seeing that it's more and more difficult for people to find way stations where they can get these things?
Barry, you just hit the nail on the head. This academy is a jewel in the rough. It's a hidden jewel. We were looking, I mean, when was this founded? 1909, 1910. 1910. This is 100 and how many years old? I mean, this academy? And there are story after story after story of what this academy has meant to these young men that have graduated from here. So what you have here is a jewel, and I would love to shout it from the rooftops that this is the one place. Do you see really, when you reflect back on what this did and where the roots came from, it came from this academy. So I would say that this would be the one place that you need to send your son to be able to get these core values that the academy offers. They're not going to be able to get these core values any other place that I know of. Not only the core values, but just the leadership that you have here, Barry. And so I think it's so important for any parent that is even contemplating sending their son here. I'm going to yell from the rooftops. Are you kidding me? Yes, please. I beg you.
Listen,
sorry if I got a little emotional. Sorry about that.
No, it's great.
I have to tell you, we'll wrap things up, and can't thank you enough for doing this, but there's a Churchill quote that where he says, no matter how good a theory may look, occasionally, you should check the results. And you are the results of this. You are our credentials. If I could hold out a person and say, if you want to know what this academy can do, you are the poster child. Because what you do, how you exemplify incredible goodness and decency and take care of people and show them a way is extraordinary. It is everything we want to be, and I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you so much. Leslie, thank you for asking.
Rob, we welcome you back anytime you want to come. And we would love to have you talk to the boys, come in the studio, share your wisdom, your life lessons, and the things that made you who you are. We know that we're proud of you, and you are a reflection of us. So we thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm proud of you as well, and thank you so much for having me. And just anything I can do for the cadets and the academy, you just ask.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you.